Hey guys, good morning. Welcome to the American Tribune Live. I am Todd Peterson. What is this? Show 3 in a row with no music? And I'm liking it. It's a little weird to cold start it, but I got to say, the music intro, you turn on to see the show and you're like, this graphic is horrible. The music is, our guy Josh did a great job with it, but it's not my vibe. And so we're going live, folks. I welcome you. Thank you for joining the show today. We got a lot to talk about. We got Donald Trump talking about ending mail in ballots. Like, yes, why is this a thing? We've got Andrew Yang going the opposite direction, trying to make voting more accessible. And so, with mail in ballots, with Andrew Yang going viral for just the god awful take, voting from your cell phone, I'm sure that wouldn't go bad. We got to talk about voting. We need to talk about who should be allowed to vote. We have to talk about restricting voting for most people in this country here. Got some graphics to show you today. So, we got to talk about voting. If we're going to save this country, I know it's a little upside down. If you're going to save democracy, which I don't care about at all, then you got to limit democracy. So if you want to save your freedoms, you need to limit freedoms in order to maximize freedom. I got to figure out how to TM that, how to patent a little phrase there. I don't know how we're not all there at that point. If you let everybody vote, you can see the end results here. Everybody voting has been a disaster, an unmitigated disaster. And of course, apparently my new theme of the show every week could be, how are Democrats exposing themselves as some sort of pro-evil? We got to talk about the summit with Putin, Zelensky, and the Democrat reaction. It's exactly as you would anticipate, because again, Democrat morality stems from what can I do for power in the moment? What is the opposite of what Donald Trump is doing? And that is it. That is where Democrat morality comes from. They do not take into account what is good, what produces the best outcome for individuals or society. They don't think like that. They don't think like you and I do. They think, how can I utilize this moment here to consolidate power, to go after power, to continue brainwashing people to give me power in this mass democracy? You see how that's all intertwined? But Donald Trump will bring peace finally to Russia and Ukraine. I think we're going to get the same peace deal that we would have had 3.5 years ago if Joe Biden and the corrupt establishment had simply said, yes, Russia, you can annex the parts of Ukraine that are ethnically Russian and want to be part of Russia. But instead, we have 3.5 years of needless slaughter, displacement, murder, conscription, just all sorts of horrors unfolding there. No one's ever gone over to Ukraine, by the way. Have you ever seen a reporter reporting from Eastern Ukraine? No, you haven't. They don't want to tell you what's happening. They just want you to believe that Russia bad, Ukraine good for some reason. But Democrats have come out now. This is not new necessarily, but it just kind of highlights the point. Democrats are the party of pro-war, which ties into the idea that they are simply pro-death. Last week, we talked about how they are pro-crime and pro-murder because they didn't want Donald Trump to secure the streets from the roving thugs that terrorize their own communities. Donald Trump has made D.C. safer already, and Democrats were opposed to that. You could go back in time a little bit more. Democrats were the party of open borders, which allowed violent illegals to come into this country, rape, assault, and murder you. Again, it ties into the pro-death idea that Democrats represent. And before, not necessarily death, although certainly dismay, they were the party of pro-corruption. Donald Trump, Elon Musk came in. They used Doge to say, where's all the waste? Where's all the fraud, the grift, the abuse, the laundering, the corruption? Democrats were shrieking about that too. They said Elon Musk is co-president. He doesn't have the authority to go in and expose how corrupt we are. So every turn, Democrats are outing themselves simply as pro-death, pro-corruption. They hate you. They are anti-goodness. They are pro-evil. And every week, I'm going to have a new example because Donald Trump's going to do something spectacular, and Democrats are going to have to oppose it. They oppose it on their own principles. They have no principles, but the principle of accruing power. And whatever Donald Trump is doing, they're going to stake out the opposite. But that also gives them a pass. Yes, they got to do the opposite of what Donald Trump is doing. They are simply evil. Democrats are possessed by demons. If you listen to the show regularly, this is not an opinion. This is just straight up fact. I'm telling you every week. Let's see. They oppose ending wars. They oppose stopping crime. They oppose limiting who can go into a girl's bathroom. They oppose making sure that there's no sexualization of children in the government school system. And it just goes on and on and on. All right, I got to pop up here. We are a live show, folks. We came off a little early today. See if we capture a new audience. We have no set time on the show here. You can listen to the show anytime on Apple and Spotify. You can catch reruns later on Rumble, YouTube, Twitter here. We're on a couple Twitter streams as well. Drop a comment. Let me know if you're in the show today. Let me know your thoughts. I love engaging with Democrats. Not to name call, not to be mean. Typically these people pop in the program, though, and they say you support a racist pedophile because, we could talk about how they are pro-child abuse as it relates to Epstein. Ask yourself this, my Democrat voting family member. friends, viewer in this case, when were you ever upset about the situation involving Jeffrey Epstein until the media and Dem politicians told you to be upset about it? What was that, 3 weeks ago? Because Trump was on the Epstein files? Because of course he was, because wealthy, powerful men that have the same social orbit in South Florida, of course they cross paths. There's photos of them together. This is not new necessarily, but suddenly Democrats were concerned about the Epstein list because they might be able to weaponize it against Donald Trump. No Democrat in the history of Democrats had ever said, gosh, we should maybe look into the Epstein list. Should we release the list? Should we try to see if the victims are telling the truth here? Not a peep. Not a peep from them. They could care less that children got abused, that rich, powerful men got away with it for decades. But Donald Trump might be on the list. So now we're going to get mad about that as well. So I guarantee if someone pops in the channel, that's what they say. You support the fascists, the rapists, the pedo. And then they completely ignore the fact, of course, that Democrats had 3.5 years, 4 full years under the Biden administration to talk about the list, release the list. They had the House, they had the Senate, they had the White House. Nothing happened. Nothing happened, folks. So don't let a Democrat tell you that you supported a pedo. Ask them why you weren't talking about it for 4 years and why the guy that they somehow voted for didn't even bring it up once here. So it's wild. It is wild, but I do love engaging with the comments here. I want to change minds. Love doing the show. Love helping you know that you are not alone out there. You are not insane. Yes, Democrats are that evil. They are that evil. Normal Americans wake up every day and they think, I'm a good person, so I'm going to vote to raise someone's taxes just a little bit to help out the needy, because that's what Jesus would do. Jesus would advocate for using the power of the state, the monopolistic power and use of force of the state to ensure that other citizens paid more money, and money, by the way, that never trickles down to the needy and downtrodden anyways. As we saw with Doge, it just lines the pockets of politicians, lobbyists, special interests, donor classes, gets funneled overseas, funneled back into their pockets again. So it looks like it's going somewhere, and it's not. And then, by the way, it goes overseas and doesn't stay in America anyways. That's its own separate problem. No, you're not a better person for voting to raise my taxes and then having that money stolen and pilfered and then maybe trickling down to someone that maybe needs it in theory, but you could open up a soup kitchen yourself. You could go work in a soup kitchen. You could donate your own money if you want to be a good person. You don't have to vote to steal my money. So no, it doesn't make you a better person for that. So much to talk about. We got to talk about voting first. I will bookend the show today. We'll circle back to the Putin summit, the Zelensky meeting. He wore a suit. There was a good moment there when he actually showed up in an actual jacket. He got just hammered the first time he showed up in February, I think, believe it or not. It's already been 6 months since Zelensky was here. And wore I always wear a black shirt on the podcast. People are starting to notice. They're like, Todd, every day you're wearing the same black shirt, the same dry fit t-shirt. Is something wrong? And I said, no, my wife got me like 10 of these at Costco. They fit great. They look great. It's super easy. I don't have to worry about what I'm wearing anymore. I'm a big fan of uniforms in every facet of life. Big fan of just making styles uniform. Men, you're going to wear slacks and a dress shirt. Women, you're going to wear this dress or whatever. You go to school, you're going to wear the same thing every day. And for my podcast, I was like, I got 10 of these Costco shirts and I like them. So I'm just going to wear them every day. Rocking a collared shirt today, though, folks. I classed it up today. I hope you noticed. I hope you enjoy that. But I look like Zelensky on my podcast every day. Black shirt. Just rocking with a black shirt. The only difference, of course, is that I'm not a world leader stealing hundreds of billions of dollars from wealthier nations to continue the slaughter of needless civilians. And I include civilians on both sides. I include soldiers on both sides. Nobody should have been dying in this from the beginning. The fact that you had Americans waving blue and yellow flags, I understand why the politicians did, because they all got wealthy off of it. And they don't care. They released the virus on you. They locked you down. They denied you treatments. They honestly don't care. You don't think for a second that the elites are concerned about your well-being. Why would they be concerned about the well-being of some name on paper halfway across the world there? But regular Americans, they're like, I support the war effort in Ukraine. Like, do you? Are you going to make any personal sacrifices? Are you going to sign up for Zelensky's Foreign Legion? You're just going to virtue signal that you're a better person because you have a blue and yellow picture in your bio? It's just not happening. It doesn't happen on this show, folks. Had to take a drink of my Split Rock coffee. If you want some delicious coffee, you're looking for something different, splitrockcoffee.com. Disabled veteran owned here right in Minnesota where I broadcast from. Paul, fantastic guy. He's always on our podcast on Fridays where my business partner and I, Jason Robertson, do Freedom from the Press. But splitrockcoffee.com. Use promo code TODD10. Subscribe and save today. And I got a reference since we're doing the ad read right here. You can see the banner on the bottom if you're watching live here. It's called Hinatory Golf. Also, a friend of a friend in Minnesota he was shopping around. He's a hacker like I am, likes to get on the links, when your young children allow it at this point in life. But he was like, you know what? I don't want this bland white golf glove. I don't want either the black golf glove. I want something with a little style. The younger generation, you look good, you feel good. If you look good, you play well. That's at least the theory for duffers like us, the weekend warrior types on the links. So he designed his own brand of golf gear, golf gloves, golf hats, rolling out new stuff every day. You got to check out the website, hinotorigolf.com, HINOTORI golf.com. Not to be confused with promo code Todd10 from Split Rock, but promo code Todd15. If you plug it in the other way, it will not register your discount. So Todd10, Split Rock Coffee, Todd10, Hinotori Golf. I got to say, my parents are very proud of me. They said, I don't know what Todd's doing with his life. And I said, Mom, Dad, I got 2 promo codes now, so they're not worried anymore. I've made it. I have a promo code. And they could not be more thrilled that I disparage their family members and friends for voting Democrat every single day. But it balances out because I'm a promo code, and they say I can live with that. I can live with that. So let's get into it. Let's get into Donald Trump first. This is his response from a reporter when he was asked, what are you going to do about mail-in voting? I don't know why we have to talk about this. Take Donald Trump out of this, take the 2020 election out of this, take even the decades-long experience, and we have done the studies on this. We know you don't even need studies for this. Just use your own brain for a second. And if I'm asking a Democrat voter out there, I know that's a stretch. You're only allowed to think and believe what you've been told. Set that propaganda aside for a second and do some thinking on your own. If the elites are willing to kill you, and that is my premise based on COVID, based on the endless wars overseas to enrich themselves and oil companies to funnel money into Ukraine and get people killed, I don't think it's a stretch to say the elites are willing to kill you. Do you think then that cheating in an election would bother them? I mean, it's a really simple question. If they're willing to let you die, they don't care if you live or die. Do you think they're going to lose sleep at night over cheating in elections that give the facade of your choice to then be killed by them, whether through a bioengineered virus, a needless war overseas, or however else this plays out, illegal aliens in the streets, driving drunk, driving their semi-tractors in these horrific U-turns where families are then crashing their vehicles into them, as we saw with the California driver license issued illegal down in Florida, I think it was. No, they don't care about cheating in elections. They don't lose sleep over killing you. They're not going to lose sleep over cheating in an election. And of all the ways they can cheat, does it really take a stretch of the imagination to think, okay, we have someone filling out a ballot, putting it in the mailbox, maybe arriving where it's supposed to, trusting someone to open it up, and maybe verify a signature or not, as we saw in 2020. Every step of the way, how do they know who sent it? They see a name on paper. Are they going to call that person up and say, hey, Todd, over on the street address, we saw you have a mail-in ballot. I don't mail in ballots, by the way, but I'll use myself as an example. Just want to make sure we received your ballot today in the mail. Did you mail your ballot in today? And mark these things on the piece of paper. They're not doing that. How hard is it to be anybody and mail it in and be the person on the other side? And I don't like that candidate, so I'm just going to tabulate it for somebody else. You would have to be, I want to give credit to my 5-year-old. I think you could lay out the premise of mail-in ballots to my 5-year-old and talk about election integrity, and she's like, well, that doesn't sound very secure. Like, yeah, of course it's not secure. Why are we ever doing mail-in ballots? So Donald Trump finally is like, look, and I don't think he referenced actually does reference 2020. We'll play the clip. I got more thoughts on mail-in ballots. Honestly, everyone should have the same thought. Mail-in ballots just have to go.
Between paper ballots, very, very important, paper ballots, and I think maybe even more important, the mail-in voting. We're going to end mail-in voting. It's a fraud. If you have mail-in vote, even Jimmy Carter with this commission, they set it up. He said the one thing about mail-in voting, you will never have an honest election if you have mail-in. And it's time that the Republicans get tough and stop it, because the Democrats want it. It's the only way they can get elected. Because with men and women's sports and with transgender for everybody and open borders and all of the horrible things, and now the new thing is they love crime. They're fighting me on the fact that I've made Washington, D.C. safe. We're not going to get mugged, beaten up, or killed like all the people you've been watching get so badly hurt. I'm glad. I hate to take your time in this, but I'm glad you asked me that question.
Sorry.
We're going to stop mail-in ballots because it's corrupt.
Again, this is not a complicated issue. Donald Trump is exactly correct. And I did say set aside even the studies. You can just use your own brain and realize that people that want to do evil in the world are going to cheat, and they're going to cheat the easiest way possible, which is mail-in ballots. Do you ever ask yourself how Joe Biden got 81 million votes, and then before and after him with Clinton and Harris, it was down to like 65 million? It wasn't because they made voting more accessible. It's because they made it easier to cheat. But yes, the people that are opposed to crime, you're pro-war, you are pro-crime, you are pro-murder. You think that's going to, well, we can't cheat in elections because that would be immoral. That's not crossing their mind at all here, folks. So Donald Trump is correct. And he is correct calling out Republicans. They need to get tough. My entire life, Republicans have either rolled over because they're cowards or rolled over because they're bought out. It might not be mutually exclusive, by the way. But yes, this is not a difficult concept here. But my thing with Donald Trump, everyone says, how do you feel about Donald Trump? I love my Dem voting family members and friends. What are your thoughts on Donald Trump? I'll tell you this, guys. I'm disappointed in Donald Trump yet again because it's not enough. Donald Trump cannot do enough. He needs to deport more people. He needs to end or make voting even harder than he is. Like, if you have any criticisms of Donald Trump, it's because it's never going far enough. And if you want to say that is radicalized, if you want to say that is common sense, I don't care what label you attach to that here. I am concerned about one thing: leaving a functioning country to my two daughters. That is it. I roll out of bed, and I don't, let's be honest, I'm not fighting a good fight here. I'm screaming at a camera here. But I would love to have a country available for my two daughters. I'm turning the big 4-0 this year. I've lived a good life. I can survive in a communist hellhole. I have experienced a lot, done a lot. I will be okay. But I will not let my two young children grow up in a country that is any different than the childhood that I had. And you got to limit freedoms on most people in this country if that's going to happen here. So I'm gonna play the clips here, and then I'm gonna get into my thoughts about how you make voting almost impossible. Again, that is the only way to maximize freedom for the majority. You need to limit freedoms, and people have a hard time with this concept. If you're going to maximize freedom in the country, you need to limit people's rights and privileges. It is not contradictory, and I will explain why. It sounds like it. People are always like, you do you. Now, you do you is a terrible idea. That's how we're here in the first place here. But no, mail-in ballots have to go. That is phase one of my overall plan. But then I want to get into Andrew Yang. This is what really prompted the show today. Let's pop up Andrew Yang's tweet on the screen here. Andrew Yang got exposure to 2.3 million people here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So Andrew Yang, he is the dumbest smart person alive. I honestly think he might get that title, the dumbest smart person. Andrew Yang's no dummy. I think he had success in the private sector for a little bit, but he embodies Reddit. Andrew Yang is the kind of like the mid. Yeah, maybe he's not that smart after. Like, can you even say someone's smart if they just have bad take after bad take after bad take? I think Andrew Yang might be the king of the mids. There's a great meme going on the internet right now about the drooling, the mouth breathers. And then the Jedi is usually how they frame it up, the high IQ. And then you got the mids in the middle of the bell curve, which make up at least 68% of the country because you got 34% on either side. And man, mids are tough to break through. These are your NPCs in the world. These are your boosted and masked up sheep here. They might be nice people. They might be great at coaching their kids' softball team. They might be great at sitting in a cubicle and going to work and sending their kids to college and taking out a mortgage and not committing any problems in society. But then they hold stupid ideas like this. We should be making it easier to vote, like voting on your phone, not harder. Now, syntax aside here, this doesn't even flow well. He had one job, and that was to write a concise, clear sentence, and he couldn't even do that. Those hyphens just completely get in the way here. No, Andrew Yang. Well, let's go through the comments, then I'll reply here. Andrew Yang gets absolutely roasted, at least with the algorithm for my feed. If you're a Democrat and you go to this page, I bet you would see Democrat replies here, so it's going to be a little different. But all the big names are jumping in on this. Gunther Eagleman says, is this a joke or are you really this stupid? Retard Finder calls it the retarded take of the day. Bowtied Ranger rolls out the latest meme, the Putin face. If you didn't see this video, we have it up on the American Tribune. Putin is asked by some woke lib journo his thoughts on, I think it was Israel, to be honest. Like, how is this related? But his face, he has so much disdain for the media. He's just like, are you really asking this question? Like, so the new meme rolled out. That's great. Cat turd. This is, by the way, if you're watching the video feed, this is my exact thought on mass democracy here. You've got people stuffing ballots in the box, and if you see the picture here, it's shoving the square into the circle. Monkeys can put these shapes in boxes better than most Americans can vote. Thanks for effing up the stereotype that Asians are smart. That was Tony Moon. Tony, I gotta follow him if I'm not. He is the OG rooftop Korean. This guy, I can't believe I wasn't following him. Matt Von Swoll says, I could not disagree more. Trust in elections is already low. The least we can do is require citizens to come vote in person. Give them the day off, make it a national holiday. Yes, that is part of my plan, by the way, a national holiday. I'm going to skip this meme because I don't agree with it. Great idea. You can see the engagement farm over in Myanmar, formerly Burma. This is how you get a lot of people getting their traffic over on the social media pages. I'm sure they wouldn't cheat in elections to vote by phone. I am going to stop it here. This is the one I wanted to get down to. You got the handle called Appalachian Liberty. If I had it my way, you'd only be able to vote if you were a landowner, have had children, or served in the military. Got thoughts on that because that's very similar to where I'm going. Giving votes to people who just vote for free stuff and government handouts and haven't contributed to society is insane. And then here is the meme. This is why making it easy to vote never ends well. It may look bad at first, but don't worry. The one on the right got 51% of the vote. Support your local democracy. This is democracy, folks. This is tyranny. And for all the stopgap measures in the Constitution, which were good, by the way, we'll do a little rundown of the history here about who was voting when the country first got founded and who is voting today here. You can vote yourself right into the front of a gun here. This person voted for the wrong candidate, so they got 49%, and that means that their murder is totally justified. And then Clandestine just says, holy F, you should not be allowed to make decisions about anything ever. On my feed is correct, by the way. If your feed doesn't have the same reactions as I do, you're following the wrong accounts or you are engaging with the wrong content. This is the only response that is allowed. Andrew Yang is getting absolutely decimated by suggesting voting should be easier. No one with a functioning brain. Now it's time for my own rant on voting should almost be impossible. I'm going to keep Andrew Yang up while we talk about this. Voting is too easy right now. Voting is a privilege. It is not a right. There is no right enshrined in the Constitution that says if you're over 18, well, it's in the amendment now, but I will say in the original Constitution, which is what we're referencing here, I don't trust amendments sometimes. I would trust amendments that limit voting, but opening up the vote to people over 18 was done during the Vietnam War, and that made sense, and that will be part of my plan, by the way. If you serve in the military, you get an exemption. Lifetime voting or anything else gets discarded here. Voting should almost be impossible. Okay, I was thirsty. I had to take a drink here. Back when the country was founded, the only people that were allowed to vote, and I'm going to say it was factually, the left is going to hear what I say, and they're going to pause it right there and edit it right there. When America was founded, people who voted were white male landowners. Now, we live in a society where you would probably not be able to get away with white male landowners being the only group allowed to vote here. But the founders had a point with landowners. So when the nation was founded, believe it or not, it was a white country. You had slaves in the country, and some of them did own land. Some of them did own slaves, by the way. I love it when you tell a Democrat that blacks, I got to pull up the names here. There were some blacks that owned hundreds of other blacks. These people were freed and then turned around and bought other blacks to enrich themselves because it turns out everybody thought slavery was okay. Now, by everybody, we mean everybody except the white Christians that eventually abolished the practice. But slavery was so ubiquitous, so universal, everybody just did it. That includes blacks. That includes Native Americans, the Indians, feathers, not dots in America, that also had black slaves, also had a fellow Indian slaves. And that's when they weren't torturing and raping and murdering everybody along the way. The lucky ones, yeah, it depends how you got tortured and killed, I suppose, but you were enslaved as well. Everybody had slaves. So white male landowners were the people basically that owned land at the time. It was a white nation. So yes, you were allowed to vote. Property owning is step one, though. So set aside the race now of people. You can be black, brown, I don't care anymore, but you got to fit the rest of the criteria. Owning land should just be an obvious from the beginning starter. The founders knew that. You needed to have a stake in society. You don't get to just show up, be born, be the leftist children that we have today saying, I'm alive, I'm entitled to everything, I'm entitled to your hard work, your time, your resources, your tax dollars. I'm entitled to that. I'm entitled to free healthcare. I'm entitled to free housing. I'm entitled to more Social Security. I'm entitled to a free education. No, 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 no. If you feel entitled, you don't get to vote. You get to go out and buy property, whether that is land, you're building a house. I don't care what property you own, maybe a business. You have to own something because that demonstrates to society that you are capable, at least to a marginal extent, of making rational decisions, and you have a stake in the future. I own this land today, whether to live there, whether as an investment, whether as a business opportunity. My goal in 30 years at this parcel structure still has value, has hopefully risen in value, since we will always deal with the Fed and inflation. If it kept the same value, that would be ideal. That means we didn't have inflation or the existence of the Fed and the money printer. But now I buy these assets and it is an investment. I want it to be worth something down the line there. I have a stake in the future of this country. In 30 years, I want my land, my home, my business, I want it to be worth something. So I will be voting for people that will optimize the possibility that it will still be worth something down in the future here. Property owning is step one. I asked Grok here, let me go to the page. The U.S. populations of, I don't think the numbers are quite right here, but I specified, and actually at the time of the Constitution, let me scroll down here to make sure my numbers are right. You had to be over the age of 21. So in the United States, at its founding here, while not necessarily enshrined in the Constitution, the practice was property owning, white, 21. So we're off to a great start already. Certain age, which they conferred adulthood at the age of 21, and you owned land. So nowadays, with all the people we have in the country, I don't know why they still say we have like 350 million people in the country. Does anyone have a better guess? I know Grok's always telling me 350. We have 30 million illegals. These numbers have not changed, I swear, since I was a kid in the 90s. We have 320 million people and 30 million illegals, so we have 350 million people in the country. Those were the figures I was fed in the 90s, in the late 90s. But let's go with that. And so then I said, Grok, if we applied the same rules today that the founding fathers had in mind when they drafted the Constitution and rolled out suffrage, that comes out to about 100 million people. And it gets a little trickier because if you have spouses, you're both on the deed, for example. But let's say 100 million people fit the criteria of over 21 in landowning. We are off to a great start already. So now we've already reduced the voting age population. Wait, was it 345 that were adults? Oh, 269 million adults in the country. So this is fantastic. We have gone from 269 million adults in the country to about 100 million that own land or own property and are over the age of 21. So again, you have to have a stake in the future. I go back and forth. Actually, I don't go back and forth here. So step number 2, again, you own property. There was the comment there under Andy Ring that you have to have kids. I'm coming around to this. I don't know if I would start with this policy procedure, but I am not going to disagree. You have to have kids, and for the same reason. If you are just some 50-year-old dink out there, you're unmarried, you're childless here, you might have great ideas for governance. You might be small government minded. You might not be, but you have no stake in the future because what do you care? When you get old and turn into dust, you honestly don't care. You have no stake in the country. So I changed my mind here. I'm just going to do a hard fact. Step number 2 is you have to have kids. For the same reason as owning property, you need to be invested in future outcomes. You don't get to live in the moment. Would it be great if I voted to tax everybody else and get more free stuff and more goodies for me? I want it right now, YOLO. I don't want YOLO voters. I want voters who think I need to conserve, I need to limit, I need to plant trees in this whose shade I will never sit, but that my children will enjoy. My father literally planted trees in our yard when he was he was an older father, but he planted trees. He would never enjoy those trees, but I got to enjoy those trees. I get to enjoy those trees now. Like quite literally that happened, but that is the philosophy that you have to have. You need to take actions, make sacrifices, do things that you might not benefit from, but that's okay because your children and their children will benefit from. And so if we ask Grok, how many adults have kids? All right. Grok, man, AI is terrifying, but sometimes when you're doing a live podcast. All right. To estimate how many U.S. adults over 18 who own property also have kids, we need to combine data. That's fine. It's spitting numbers out in real time. All right. I'm just waiting for the summary here. It keeps spitting out information. I have no way of fact checking this, by the way. We are just reading out what Grok has. All right, Grok, TLDR. Oh, we're getting everything. There's a lot of stuff here that I'm not going to read. Probably should. Final answer. Approximately 35 million adult property owners over the age of 18 have children under 18, representing about, oh my God, folks, this is the best news I've had all day. I'm going to read this in its entirety here. I got the final answer from Grok. Again, I don't know if it's true. Sounds reasonable enough to me as I'm looking at the numbers here. So let me read this to you. So I asked Grok over on X here, Super Grok, because I'm a premium member. I got my blue check. I said, how many Americans own property? How many of those are over the age of 18? Or I think I might have specified a 21 to go with the Constitution here, but I'll get back to that. So property owner over 18 have kids. Folks, this is what Grok spit out here. Approximately 35.5 million adult property owners over the age of 18 in the United States have children under 18 living in their household, representing about 27.8%. So this does not include, if you were a parent, let's say you're a boomer and your kids are out of the house, I would let you vote here. So this number is going to be a little bit higher here. But isn't that astounding here? About a quarter of the country, a quarter of the adult property owners have young kids. There we go, man. We are really limiting who gets to vote here when you factor in the children thing. I love this. All right, I'm totally pro you have to have kids to vote. So you are absolutely limiting who gets to vote, and this is a good thing. You need to have a stake in the future. This is a recurring theme. So now you got people that debate 18, 21. When the Constitution written, it was 21, which is also odd to me because you were like an adult at 13. You basically, I mean, what was Benjamin Franklin, like 14, running his own printing press at that point? But 21 back in the day. I am fine with 18 if you're in the military. And honestly, I know a lot of, I won't say, yeah, they're smart. They're working on their wisdom there. They got their minds on their shoulders here, their heads on their shoulders here. You can be a lot smarter and a lot more vested in the future of the country. You might be a lot more intelligent when it comes to parsing fake news propaganda at 18 than you are if you're a boomer voting for Kamala Harris. I'm not going to say you accrued wisdom. You're older. We can't let the kids have a say in the country. I would rather have an 18-year-old that owns property as a father, or maybe not, just getting started here. I'm fine with 18-year-olds voting if they make the criteria, they check off the boxes, than some like single boomer geriatric that's like, I listen to MSNBC and I'm mad about Donald Trump this week. So the age thing, I think we have to get past that. Yes, we were all kids at one point. Yes, we did really stupid things. Yes, it's amazing any of us are here today. And you can look at the next generation and say, yes, they're glued to their phones, but not all of them. And everyone else is glued to the screen anyways. So I don't know if that's really going to be like they're glued to their phones. Yeah, so are you as a boomer. But you can be a lot wiser and smarter at 18. And the proof is that you had, I think, the white female over 55 block went for Kamala Harris. So that basically ends any discussion that just because you're older makes you wiser and smarter. But there it is, folks. There it is. So let me run down the list here because we were kind of went on some tangents here. Grok, if you don't have Twitter, Grok is great. It's a powerful search engine, but then you can have conversations with it, which is really odd. So Todd Peterson's rule of voting. Let's finally get to this here because then we got to talk about Ukraine and Russia. Number one, you have to own property. Number two, you have to have kids or have had kids. If your kids are grown up and out of the house, I didn't take the time to really parse that through with Grok here. But if your kids grow up, you're still a parent. You're still vested in their prosperity. You're vested in your grandchildren's prosperity. So you have to be or have been a parent at some point with people living in the house. You can be over the age of 18. So this is where the exception comes in as well. I'm fine with 18. That's the number we've established here. I mean, in the past, I have said 30. And again, if someone actually crafted legislation to say, I don't care if you own land, I don't care if you're a parent, you still have to be 30, I think I would live with that. But I don't care. I don't care as much about age anymore because we have seen that age does not necessarily correlate to making an informed vote. And again, I look at the white female over 55 that swung for Kamala Harris. So people telling me like, yeah, if you're older, you're going to make, no, you're not going to make better decisions. So I don't care. If you're in the military, this is where you're exempt as well. You don't have to own land. You don't have to be a parent. You're serving in the military. You're damn right you get to vote. You don't get to sit this one out and let other people vote to send you to your slaughter. You got the Liz Cheneys that Donald Trump, this is when they were like, he tried to assassinate Liz Cheney. He said we should assassinate Liz Cheney. Say the people that actually tried to assassinate Donald Trump, by the way. But no, Liz Cheney, who is childless, by the way, from a comfortable DC office, would just say, yes, let us continue the war in Ukraine. Let's escalate it. Let's send our boys over to the Middle East. She has no stake in their lives. She has no stake whether they live or die. She has no stake in the future of the country. She doesn't care. She's here to get hers now. So if you're in the military, you're sitting around, you're like, well, I didn't get to say anything about this, but I guess Liz Cheney did. So no, in the Todd Peterson voting rules, we got to come up with a snazzier name than that. Liz Cheney wouldn't be allowed to vote. And by the way, the same rules that apply to voting apply to elected office. That would mean no more Lindsey Grahams, childless, closeted gay Lindsey Grahams, openly lesbian. And it's not because they're gay or lesbians that I don't like them, but big reason why they don't have kids, by the way. This just in, it turns out when you're part of the LGBTQ jihad, you kind of run yourself out as the most dysgenic movement possible. People are over here like, oh, it's super hereditary, this gay gene. And it's like, this is the least hereditary thing possible. Do you know how genes work? You pass along traits that thrive in the real world. You being gay automatically excludes you from passing on your genes. Don't tell me it's hereditary. And awesome. Actually, fun fact too, I watched a video. This was, I think he was like a young Gen Z lib, woke out of his mind. He just had like the haircut and the look and the mannerisms. But he did a 30-minute expose on DARE. And anyone that's anyone knows what DARE is. I was a kid. I went through the DARE program. This was the program that said, hey, you've never heard about crack cocaine before. Let me tell you what it's like to be on crack cocaine, but don't try it. So they roll out this DARE program. I think this guy's numbers were over 100 million Americans went through DARE, just the kids that have grown up now. And they were exposed to things that they would never have had any idea about. And you'll see where I'm going with this. They never did a study on the DARE curriculum. I take that back. They did do a study, and it turns out it was less effective than had they done nothing. Turns out when you tell kids about drugs and the side effects of using those drugs, and some kids are like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound like the worst thing in the world. What do you mean this heroin trip is going to just knock my socks off? I'm in. I didn't know about heroin before, but this officer told me about it, and it sounds pretty neat. So kids that actually went through DARE in the United States were more likely, this is a DOJ study, by the way, that they tried to bury, but eventually came out. The DOJ, the United States DOJ, which helped fund DARE, released a study that said, yes, it turns out the kids that went through DARE were more likely to abuse drugs than kids that had never been exposed to it. So imagine that for a second. When you tell kids, young, impressionable kids, you introduce them to topics they would otherwise not be introduced to, they are more likely to engage in said topics. And I posed the question to the guy in the video. I don't think he ever replied to me, but I said, this is identical to what's going on with the LGBTQ nonsense. We have more kids than ever before that identify as gay, lesbian, bi, trans, especially. And people are just like, well, it's hereditary. They've always been there, but society was too mean and oppressive. And it's like, no, it wasn't hereditary, because those are the first things to die off when you don't reproduce. If I'm gay, the chances of me passing on my gay gene to my kids are zero because I'm not in a heterosexual relationship. So that gay gene with me would die. So that pretty much wipes out the gay gene. It's not hereditary. It is a social contagion. And I use DARE as an example. DARE proved when you introduce kids, young, impressionable kids, to topics that they have had no previous exposure to, and you plant the seed that, like, crack exists, heroin exists, sounds good to me. When you tell kids, like, you might be gay, you might be bi, you might be trans, you might be questioning, you might be confused, you might be an ally, it turns out that those kids turn into that. Turns out when you tell them this is a possibility, they materialize into that possibility. Who had any idea about that? So I did ask the guy here. Again, he was a lib, and these people are so close. They're so close. I feel like this is the old school lib, though. He was a younger guy, but this mindset of like, I don't trust the government. Look what the government did. And they only ever distrust the government when it's like Trump in office. I trust Joe Biden when he's in government. So what they're saying is, they haven't quite figured it out. You do trust the government, but you trust it when it's your government. The only answer is you should not trust any government. And then he was labeling like the founders of DARE ultra conservative, far right, and it's just like, no, you're wrong about that. He got wrong on his labels, but he was right about the premise, even though he wasn't fully connecting the dots. Yes, DARE made kids more likely to use drugs. Grooming kids in the government school with our LGBTQ rainbow jihad curriculum is turning more kids gay. Now, we're also turning gay because of microplastics and environmental toxins and everything else as well. But the social impact cannot be understated as well. I don't know where I was going with that. That was quite the tangent there. Let us reset for a second there. I had to get that off my chest. I saw that the other night, and I was just like, my God, this is certainly not the first time that we have been down this path. All right, but voting, if you're in the military, you get the exemption there. No problem about that. The final thing there, and it's interesting, I feel like I've always said if you're a net contributor in our tax system, well, number one, you're going to be a net contributor, I think, if you own property, because right now you have property taxes. Big things happening with Ron DeSantis, by the way. Ron DeSantis is coming out and saying we need to maybe abolish property taxes, which has been my position for years. I did an hour and a half on abolishing property taxes. Check that one out. That was one of my first podcasts there. Again, that is common sense. Why am I paying rent to the government? You're telling me I can live in a home for 30 years, pay off the bank, and then pay more and more money as time goes on to the government because I bought my house at a said price, thanks to inflation and thanks to factors outside of my control. I agreed to this price when I bought the home. It's now worth triple that. So I'm going to pay triple the property taxes. It's the entire system's a sham. I hate it more than income taxes. So DeSantis might abolish that. But if you're a net contributor in society, property, income, sales, whatever you name it, there are endless taxes. Then you also get to pay. If you receive more money from the government than you pay in, you are also excluded from voting. But I think it would go hand in hand. If you own a home, I would imagine a small minority of homeowners actually get those benefits. Now, if you got a benefit through a government loan, for example, about 1,000 homes heard the program on my walk this morning. Wrong Think. This is the greatest advertisement I've ever had. Appreciate you blaring the podcast here. I hope that you have, if you're doing the walk next time, can you ask them, like, hey, did you tune into the American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson? Appreciate that. Yeah, this is common sense here. I'm glad the world is getting exposed to common sense. Turns out voting shouldn't be easy. Turns out we shouldn't have all these taxes. Yeah, turns out we shouldn't have war in Eastern Europe still. I don't know, Wrong Think. I know it's pretty controversial on this show here. Turns out you shouldn't be pro-murder, pro-crime, pro-open borders, pro-war in Ukraine. I mean, I can't believe, and I will say this serious now, I can't believe that people disagree with the premise of my show here. This seems like the most common sense position. But Wrong Think, appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate you listening on your walk, by the way, and appreciate you blaring it to 1,000 people. I've been pretty subdued today. I didn't sleep last night, and it wasn't the kids. I was going back to like the 1950s sitcoms when the husband and the wife sleep in different beds, and I'm just in my head like, that sounds glorious. The last 2 nights, the wife is just a tosser and a turner in bed. The previous night, her leg collapsed on me, woke me up. Last night, she rolls over and just smacks me. And so I'm awake at 2 a.m. There's no going back to sleep. So I rue for the day when men and women can get their own separate bedrooms. Like, give me my own room. Give me my own bed. I'm set. I will see you at 7 a.m. again. Let me sleep. So, yeah, I'm a little quieter today, a little calmer. That might be a healthy thing. I am caffeinated, though. Wrong Think, I don't know if you blared the advertisement as well for Split Rock Coffee. I suppose you did. 1,000 new potential coffee drinkers. All right, but thanks for tuning in. So, we got to get to Ukraine. But again, voting should almost be impossible, and this is why. I don't trust most people. I think there was one more meme. Yeah, I don't trust most people. All right, we're going to skip the meme here. Here's our little engagement farm. Most people don't know what's good for them. Most people can't take care of themselves. And we have found out that when you give people the right to vote that are too low IQ, too brainwashed, too motivated by nefarious factors, such as getting more money from the government here, not thinking long term, you just have too many people you got to weed out. Most people don't fit the checklist. If we had an IQ test, I would say no to that, by the way. I know I make fun of like the low IQ voter. You can be low IQ, but honestly, at this point, I think the more low IQ you are in certain places, the less susceptible you are to brainwashing. Because if you're just some mid IQ person and you trust the experts and you feel so erudite because you read a certain news source or you watch a certain program, you're able to recite the sound bites. You're able to say like Donald Trump is a fascist pedophile. And then when pressed on that, I don't know, that's what someone told me. But that's what those people think. They're so smart. They're so smug and arrogant because they can recycle back one sentence, one talking point, one bumper sticker slogan. But the low IQ, they're just like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, what are you talking about? I don't have time in the day to listen to this program. I don't know what they're saying anyways. So they're normal. They're normal because they got saved by their low IQ. So I don't want an IQ test. I don't even want a civics test anymore. It's very straightforward. Property owning, having children, and you take it from there. And you take it from there. Voting should be really hard. And when you implement the voting program, it's going to be the same day. This, again, is not controversial. It's going to be a federal holiday. And even if you're not allowed to vote, I will give you the day off. I say, I got a little noblesse oblige in me. I got a little bit of empathy. Fine. You can go cry for the day. I didn't get to vote. Well, you can go buy property then. You can not be a moron. You can have kids. You can do a lot of things if you want to be able to vote, but you can go cry in the corner because you didn't get to vote when everyone else did, when very few people did. Yeah, but it's going to be on the same day. It's going to be in person. It's going to be all paper ballots, and we're going to know the results when the precincts close. You're going to hand count them twice. You're going to run them through a machine, and if they don't line up perfectly, you're going to do it again. You are going to ensure with paper and machine or hand counting, machine counting that they line up perfectly. And I saw someone propose smaller precincts. I would say good luck with that because it takes a lot of volunteers for voting. But maybe that would cut down on the cheating factor as well. But there it is, folks. There is the voting should almost be impossible. I just don't trust people. Half the country voted for Kamala Harris. Half this country still trusts the media that they watch. Half the country doesn't own property. Half the country doesn't have kids. Like, there are so many things involved here. You're just not entitled to vote. Voting needs to be heavily restricted. And it turns out when you limit who gets a say or you ignore what they say, good things can happen. And I'll use Washington, D.C. as an example. I could use Ukraine as an example. Those were the topics of the last 2 weeks. How Democrats are pro-crime, pro-war, pro-death, and pro-murder. Washington, D.C. residents didn't vote for Donald Trump if they could. These people absolutely hate Donald Trump. It's a majority black area, or it's majority black or majority white affluent that works in the government here, neither of which are voting for Donald Trump. These people's lives are getting made better, and I mean all of them, the white affluent libs, the poor blacks in D.C., their lives are better every single day with Donald Trump in office. He has sent in the National Guard. He has federalized the police. He is making neighborhoods, streets, communities. He's making it all safer. And that's just on his crime policy in the last week. Everything Donald Trump has done, though, is making their lives better. These people would vote for their own demise because, again, they're too brainwashed. They're too smug. They're too clueless. They think they're better than you. They think they're the best version of human beings to ever grace the planet. They think they're smarter than you, more moral than you. Couldn't be further from the truth. But if they didn't have a choice in voting, so they already voted the wrong way. They vote Democrat every single time. That's how D.C. has its DEI police chief that doesn't know what chain of command means. That's how they end up with Muriel Bowser. That's how they end up with their ward leaders. All these just, and I think they're all black in the ward city council, however they're structured over there. How is that working out for you? Voting Democrat for 60 years. Like, I can see how it's working out for you. You got thugs roaming the streets. You got impoverished communities. You got no way out of the ghetto situation. You're dependent on government handouts, but you're going to tell me that voting Democrat's the way to go? So they vote the wrong way. All you got to do is take their vote away and say, look, I know better than you. I know what works. What works is common sense and logic and rationality. I'm going to not let criminals do crime. How about that? I'm going to solve conflicts overseas. How about that? I'm going to expose and cut out government corruption. How about that? I'm going to secure the border. I'm not going to let the schools trans your kids. I'm not going to let them groom your kids. I'm not going to let them expose them to sexual content here. I mean, none of this is complicated, but for half the country and for the majority of voters, it is. It is too easy. Actually, that reminds me here. Let me go back. I had one more. I think it was this one right here. Where'd my guy go? So Bowtied Ranger, I retweeted this as well. Vox Populi, I'm probably saying this wrong. Vox Day sounds good until you realize 1/3 of the voting base is retarded. Yes. I mean, these people vote right now and they vote the wrong way. We're doing them a favor by just saying you can't vote at all with a chance to mess it up. I'm actually doing these people a favor. So it seems contradictory, but to maximize freedom, you do have to put constraints on other freedoms. That means most people can't vote, but they won't be any worse off because they vote the wrong way anyways. They actually vote to harm themselves. I'm simply saying you don't get a chance to harm yourself. I will take decisions, if you want to call it a little, what's the word, patronage? But again, people with a vested interest, people that can think long term. I saw a study. I think this is pretty consistent. People like a third of the population I mean, that's the low figure, by the way. A third of the population, though, can't foresee the future. They can't in their head like figure out if I do A, then B happens. They can't visualize in their head. And I saw they're trying to roll out this new term like anaphasia or something, where you can't see pictures in your head. So it's like normal people, when they read a book, they see like the movie in their head, basically. Like when they immerse themselves in literature, they're in that world. That's why reading is so fun, because you drop yourself in this other universe. You can see the characters talking to each other. You can see them engaging in their fictional world. But like half the country can't do that. Half the human population doesn't do that. They don't visualize, and then they can't think long term. They can't think about consequences. Let's see, if I go terrorize these people in the community, forget like I might get arrested. They're not thinking like in 10 years, is this going to limit my chance to be a productive member of society? Like they don't think this way. So how are we trusting the people that can't visualize, can't foresee problems, playing out scenarios in their head? Let's see, if I vote Democrat, I've seen what Democrats have done for 50 years in my community. They steal from me. They entrench themselves in power. My communities rot out. But maybe this Democrat will be different. Or if I vote Republican and Donald Trump, he'll solve crime. He'll remove illegals. My communities will be safer. They can't think that way. Why are we trusting these people to vote if they can't even compare, contrast, look ahead, visualize? Like, it is frightening stuff out there, but you want everyone to vote because what, you're a good person? Mass democracy is a horrible, horrible mistake. We tried it. I would argue that there were some people that were like, if we get more morons in the voting system, if we let all men vote, if we let all women vote, if we take away the property owning clause, might they vote for horrible candidates that just appeal to the lowest common denominator? Hey, do you like free stuff? Vote for me. And you wonder why things are so awful here. All right, I've been kind of going on a tangent here. I got to talk about Ukraine, though. Okay, really fast, folks, and I want to wrap this up in an hour. We got to talk Ukraine. We got to talk peace. Donald Trump met with Putin, wildly successful. He met with Zelensky. He owned Zelensky this time. They didn't even have to like yell at him like the first go around when Trump and Vance just laid into the stupid T-shirt wearing guy. This time they were jovial. They were laughing with each other. Donald Trump was still the same, like, you're not getting past this. You're going to do what we want to do, but he was more lighthearted about it. And so it was a success. There's no ceasefire because I think there's just going to be a peace deal. And as Donald Trump tweeted out, why do I need a ceasefire? I haven't had a ceasefire in the other 6 peace deals I arranged so far in my presidency. And we've seen how ceasefires work out in Gaza and Israel all the time. How long do those last each time? So, but that's the talking point. That is one of the talking points. Oh, it wasn't a success. Well, he didn't achieve anything. Wrong, he did. But Democrats are opposed to Donald Trump sitting down with Putin and Zelensky. They want this war to go on forever. If you vote Democrat, just understand you are voting for perpetual war, perpetual mayhem, destruction, death, suffering. No, I'm biting my tongue here because I want Democrats to listen to the show here, but I need them to understand the evils that you support when you vote Democrat. You are voting for war that you yourself would never fight in, that you yourself have never made any sacrifices for, but you're a good person because you support Ukraine. It's asinine. It's absolutely asinine. You're sending people to the slaughterhouse. Women, children, men, conscripts, civilians, soldiers. All these people have been dying for 3.5 years, and you're styling yourself as a better human being? I just can't with that. But here's Democrats. Again, Donald Trump did one thing, so they got to take the opposite approach. But more than that, these people love evil. These people are possessed by demons. They do the bidding of Satan. And I don't mean that hyperbolically. I got Eric Swalwell. I got, what is it, Mike Blumenthal? Senator Blumenthal? I don't know his first name. Doesn't matter. These guys are all interchangeable demons. But they're both going to tell their audience, CNN and MSNBC, that Donald Trump's meeting was a failure. And then I'm trying to remember, when did Joe Biden meet with these guys? Did Joe Biden ever try to solve the war in Ukraine? I seem to recall a lot of money and munitions going over to Ukraine so that more people could be killed. How about that, Democrats? But let's listen to their absolutely evil, low IQ takes on the summit that we had this weekend.
If you're Europe, you're quite worried now because you just saw the president of the United States achieve 0 and they will have to ask themselves what more are they willing to do, knowing that they too could be thrown under the bus if Russia ever moved farther west. But as far as objectives, I was hoping to hear that there would be a trilateral meeting. That didn't come out of this. I was hoping.
All right. As he goes through his objectives, just in the back of your head, remember, did Joe Biden, ask yourself each time, did Joe Biden do that? Did Joe Biden have a trilateral meeting?
Here there'd be a ceasefire. That didn't come out of this. And I was hoping.
Did Joe Biden negotiate a ceasefire?
At least hear about the territory that would be proposed or exchanged by both sides. That didn't come out of this.
So Eric Swalwell has never been, he's a meaningless moron. He's obviously never been involved in a negotiation, because when you are sitting down with leaders in conflict for the past 3.5 years, the first question you ask yourself is, are you open to peace? Now, Donald Trump might navigate that a little bit differently here, but if you're going to find a peace deal, the first question you're going to ask is, are they open to peace? Or do they want this conflict to go on forever? If you just jump in, I'll use Eric Swalwell's third point right there. What territories are you going to give up? That's the wrong starting point. If Putin or Zelensky, or pick a world leader in a global conflict, or a localized conflict for that matter, any conflict, a warring party, ask, are you open to ending this? Do you want this conflict to stop? Are you tired of the suffering and the slaughter that's taking place with your civilians and other human beings? If the answer is no, then it doesn't matter what territories we're going to talk about, because it is moot at that point. If they don't want the conflict to end, then they don't care what territories you're willing to put on the bargaining table here. So it's absolutely asinine. But again, this is what Democrats have. They are mad. They are mad that Donald Trump is going to bring peace. Number one, they want people killed. Number two, they love the laundering with the military-industrial complex. Yeah, they're mad that it's going to make Trump look good. But I think more than that, they just absolutely don't want this thing to end. They love what is happening to Ukraine. And I guess I would opine as well. I don't know if I want to take the white European angle here. Would it be different if it were not a white country? I'm stuck on that. Like, would we be sending weapons and money to Colombia? I don't know. I don't know about that one. Could be the NATO angle. Just could be the European angle. I haven't thought about that as much. I won't go into the white angle as much. But these people, every 3 points, did he have a trilateral? Again, not having been part of negotiations, Swalwell has no idea how this works, and he's a moron. So there's that. But let's see. You have Trump, Putin, and Zelensky. Putin and Zelensky killing each other here. I mean, the United States has been helping Ukraine. So Putin's already like, stop sending them money and weapons. But then Trump has to meet with Putin, get a read on him. He has to meet with Zelensky, get a read on him. Now, this whole time, never mind the fact that this whole time, Putin and Zelensky could have met with each other. They could have both agreed we're tired of the killing. Do we even need the United States to mediate this? I mean, I guess since we involved ourselves in the conflict, but I know if my brother and I growing up had a conflict, I'm tired of getting punched in the face. You're tired of getting punched in the face. Should we just agree to stop punching each other? Okay, we're wrestling, we're fighting. This is stupid. Did we both go to mom and dad and say, hey, mom and dad, can you help us sit down and agree to stop fighting? Yeah, boys, do you want to stop fighting? Well, I do. Well, I do. Okay, then stop fighting. Like, I'm also wondering, like, who is the whole war is just stupid at this point. But there's Swalwell. There's his really intelligent take. He didn't sit down with all three of them. I would have liked to have seen that. Was Swalwell talking about this for 4 years under Joe Biden? Folks, I got to say this too. Isn't it interesting if you go back in time how the Russia-Ukraine conflict started just as COVID was going away? They played out the COVID narrative long enough. They were going to release like Omicron. And yes, when I say release, I mean release. And then suddenly Russia invades Ukraine and you were done talking about COVID. Go back in time. Look at like newspaper headlines. Go look at corporate media shilling. Like, we all stopped talking about COVID the day Russia invaded Ukraine, and that was it. Was it an accident? Was it convenient? Did they just like, well, this is a good chance for us to just not talk about COVID anymore? Like, that's how it played out. Russia invades Ukraine. You stop worrying about COVID. Suddenly your Democrat family members and friends don't wear masks anymore. And you're like, what changed? And they'd be like, well, you see, Vladimir Putin is a threat to democracy in Ukraine, so I don't have time to wear a mask and be worried about COVID. I have to worry about this existential threat over in Eastern Europe. Absolutely delusional, too.
Look, Alicia, I don't know if Donald Trump is or is not a Russian asset.
We're still doing that, by the way, folks. They are still doing this. They brought it back. Schiff himself, Adam Schiff, talked about Trump being a Putin puppet. And this is 10 years after the fact that we now know Schiff created fake intelligence alongside Obama and Clinton and Clapper and Comey and Brennan and everybody else in the Democrat establishment. They're actually going with he might be a Putin puppet after we know 10 years ago the deep state manufactured evidence, manufactured classified intelligence that showed Trump was a Putin puppet. This is beyond scraping the bottom of the barrel at this point. They know that, again, one-trick pony is being too nice to one-trick ponies. I don't want to disparage one-trick ponies. This is both evil, insane, and laughable. It would be funny. I did laugh because it's just like they're actually doing this. I am laughing at the MSNBC viewers out there that are like, oh my God, Donald Trump might be bought out by Putin. Yes, the $4 billion net worth figure that's in the White House that was almost killed, that doesn't have to be president, he is paid for by Vladimir Putin. Here's a guy that he was living the Playboy lifestyle, properties all over the world, successful businessman. He didn't need to be killed by the regime. Yes, Donald Trump got bought out by Putin. Let's go with that still. He's a Putin puppet. As if Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and every politician isn't like an Epstein client list mender bought out by China, bought out by Israel. Like, they want you to think that like Russia and Trump are uniquely positioned to hold sway in some capacity. Have you seen AIPAC donations in Washington, D.C.? Have you seen how they all do the bidding of big pharma, big military industrial complex, big oil, big whatever industry? No. Ignore all that, Democrat voters. Just focus on Russia paying off Putin. The rest of the politicians are just fine. You know what? It doesn't matter that Hunter Biden was on the board of Burisma in 2014. Burisma, by the way, which is a natural gas company in Ukraine. Doesn't matter that the United States overthrew an elected leader in Ukraine in 2014. Doesn't matter that Joe Biden offered a rather stern quid pro quo in Ukraine and bragged about it a little while later to stop investigating Burisma and Hunter Biden. It's absolutely asinine, folks. Who believes this? I think Swalwell probably believes it because I don't like to use the word retarded a lot. Eric Swalwell is literally retarded. And I mean that in the nicest way possible to actual low IQ folks that are really nice. I mean, you go to a McDonald's drive-thru, you see someone that's struggling a little bit, but you're like, thank you for working hard. Thank you for being so pleasant in customer service. Eric Swalwell is just a separate kind of retard here. Again, possessed by demons, though. But how are you, as a Democrat voter, buying this? You honestly are going with the Russian collusion narrative. The entire premise, by the way, which is all fake and manufactured, and that's what Tulsi Gabbard is talking about. When Tulsi Gabbard talks about how they made up the Russian collusion narrative, Swalwell is repeating the already falsified, debunked Russian collusion narrative, and you as a Democrat viewer are believing it.
I do know that at press conferences like this and like at Helsinki, he certainly acts like one. And that is cold comfort for anyone in the United States, particularly in our military, that the commander-in-chief would be so flattering of and so charming to a ruthless dictator like Vladimir Putin.
And again, how did Joe Biden do? Like, that's the first question here. And it's not whataboutism. It's like, where are you? Are you arguing from a place of principles, stupidity, bias, all the above? Minus the principles. I mean, the principles of Democrats are just, how can I get power? Joe Biden didn't do anything for 3.5 years. Eric Swalwell did not advocate for peace for 3.5 years. Like, it is just like the Epstein list all over again. Democrats were silent on Jeffrey Epstein for decades until Donald Trump might be on the list, and then suddenly you are supporting a pedophile in the White House if you voted for him. They had the White House, they had the House, they had the Senate, they had the Department of Justice, they had the FBI, they had everything, and they said nothing about Epstein for decades until Donald Trump might be on the list after his third election, by the way. And it's like, I think they would have released it. They wouldn't have sat on it for his third election when he can no longer run anymore. So make that make sense. But same thing here. Swalwell wasn't advocating for peace under Joe Biden's regime. Eric Swalwell had a Ukraine lapel. He voted every time to send money to Ukraine. And I'm supposed to believe that he's now upset that the peace deal didn't play out the way that he wanted? Are you kidding me? The guy that wanted endless war in Ukraine, the guy that wanted endless suffering and death and catastrophe, voted every single time to send more money, get us more involved in Ukraine. This is the guy that's now complaining on TV saying that Donald Trump didn't negotiate peace the right way or the way that he wanted to see that. Get out of here with that. Eric Swalwell has never met a war he didn't like, has never seen a dead Ukrainian or Russian that he didn't like, and now you're supposed to just flip the switch as a Democrat voter and be like, I was for this war, and now I'm disappointed that Donald Trump's not solving it the right way. This is beyond. Folks, like, do you not see it? And again, I am appealing to my Democrat family members and friends. You guys loved the war. You can't be upset how Donald Trump is negotiating peace and drawdowns at this point. You don't have that right. You voted for more involvement, more money, more weapons, more murder, more suffering, more displacement, more everything. You wanted that. You had your stupid blue and yellow bio. You had everything going for Ukraine. And now that Donald Trump is drawing down the conflict, there will be peace. Make no mistake, Donald Trump will solve this war. He'll end the war, skipping right over ceasefire, going to immediate, here's your land for Russia. Ukraine, deal with it. It wasn't yours to begin with anyways. And by the way, Russia was stronger and took it. That's how this works. They have no problem with force taking the United States. They're like, we're going to send in 20 million illegals. What are you going to do about it? It's an invasion. And we're not fighting back. So yes, they are going to take America from us. That is what happened. That's how the world works. The strong lead. That's why I want my side to be strong and lead the way that it should be run, rather than the strong side of the communists leading the way that they want to run it and ruin everything. But no, Democrats do not have the right to complain about how peace is coming about when they said nothing about peace for years. You have zero right, Eric Swalwell, to mention this. You have zero right as a Democrat voter. My family members and friends, great people, you get to have no opinion how Donald Trump is negotiating peace when every single time you voted for escalation, the opposite of peace. You voted for Kamala Harris, which would have escalated the situation in Ukraine. Do not play the card of I'm mad how Donald Trump is negotiating peace, because you wanted the opposite of that the entire time. I'm going to have to post that to socials here. What a stupid talking point. All right, we got to get to Blumenthal. I'm fired up here. We went over an hour, but here is one more just god-awful take.
Seeing a lot of these kind of summits, did anything come out of this in your mind?
Nothing came out of this summit. It was a nothing burger. It was a shrug of the shoulders. But I will tell you, Anderson, my stomach turned when I heard the President of the United States characterize Vladimir Putin as his fabulously good friend.
All right, so there is a theme here. I played two clips on purpose. Number one, how Trump engaged with Putin. Apparently, Vladimir Putin is the boogeyman. He's an awful human being. You're not supposed to be nice to him. You know, you're trying to find peace, maybe flatter him a little bit, make him feel welcome. So you're supposed to just be mean to him. Good luck negotiating that. Again, these people they're lying. They know how this works. You butter people up. You know, you get more, catch more flies with honey, or however that saying goes. And I don't care. Yeah, Donald Trump's a businessman, a successful one, quite successful one at that. He knows how to interact with people. Your goal is not to be nice or mean. This is such feminine coded language. Your goal is to be productive and successful. That is it. Donald Trump's goal, we go back to visualizing the future. These people can't do it. The end result, the end goal is that there is no more war in Ukraine. How you get to that goal, apparently my graphic chopped off my little steps there. How you get to that goal, it's up to the individual doing the negotiating. You can negotiate from a piece of strength, flattery, I don't care. If you reach your goal and say, I solved this conflict, there is no more war, i.e. no more casualties, suffering, death, then mission accomplished. If it takes kissing Putin's ass, if it takes threatening him with just the worst kind of retaliation ever, I don't care, because I believe in outcomes. Again, this is a defining characteristic of the left and the right. They focus on process. What does it sound like? What does it look like? I care about outcomes. Does the war come to an end or not? So again, being disingenuous there, but they want to frame this up as Trump was too nice to a dictator. You know who was a dictator, by the way? Joe Biden. Joe Biden was a bigger dictator than Vladimir Putin. And, you know, Putin killed a few journalists. Guess what? Joe Biden got a journalist killed too. Look at Gonzalo Lira. Look up that name. Joe Biden was killing journalists as well with the help of his friend Zelensky. He locked you up in prison for protesting the government. He put wires around the Capitol building for threatening to or thinking about protesting the government. So I just don't care. I don't care how Trump talks to Putin. No adult should. But that's the narrative. That's number one. Just like Swalwell said, he was so nice to a dictator. Again, if you care about peace, you care about outcomes, you honestly don't care what that looks like. But then if you have a functioning brain, you realize, like, yes, it might take a little bit of flattery to bring Vladimir Putin to the table.
Putin is a war criminal. He has directed.
All right, guys, if you want to talk war criminals, you could talk every single president of the United States. That's just a fact. Barack Obama droned the hell out of the Middle East. He murdered civilians left and right. That makes Barack Obama a war criminal. George Bush, you don't even have to talk. Everyone agrees left and right that George Bush is a war criminal. I mean, you want to talk the war criminal path here? Like, let's play that game here. Anthony Fauci et al., by the way, the entire establishment in D.C., illegally and immorally funded the development of the COVID virus, the Corona-19. They unleashed it on the world and slaughtered millions of people. So do you want to talk about crimes against humanity, Mr. Blumenthal? Your boys over there in D.C. and Gain of Function Research and Anthony Fauci have killed more people than Putin could kill in 10 lifetimes with the coronavirus. So spare us all of that as well. All right, he's going to get to one more talking point, though.
Soldiers to kill women and children and bury them in mass graves. He's kidnapped children as we speak. The real
guys, if you support the Ukraine war, you are putting women and children in graves right now. The intentional lying and gaslighting and misdirection here, it is off the charts. If there is a just God, I think Blumenthal will be burning for all eternity. These lies are outrageous. They are insane. He certainly can't believe this. No one believes this, right? He's saying, like, Vladimir Putin's a war criminal because of what he has done on a small scale. And by the way, I support the war in Ukraine that is operating those same crimes at a massive scale,
Reality on the ground is that people are bleeding and dying all around Ukraine because Putin is continuing to bomb them.
His complaint is that people are dying, and his solution is to not solve the war. Am I missing something, audience? Am I missing something here? He just told you what I'm telling you. I hate the war in Ukraine because people are getting killed. Civilians are getting killed. Non-combatants are getting killed. Soldiers are getting killed, conscripted against their will, dragged into the front lines here and killed needlessly. Because when this comes to an end, what will their death have been for? It will have been for nothing. That's my talking point, Blumenthal. I hate this. I have hated this consistently, by the way, for 3.5 years. He started hating it Saturday when Trump met with Putin. I have been saying that from the beginning. All of us have that value the life and dignity of human beings. No needless suffering so that they can be pawns and just this chessboard for the elites. I don't want this. So the solution to that is ending the war. I can't believe I have to say that out loud. The solution to the war, if you want to end the war, you end the war. That's how you stop the suffering and the casualties and the murder. His solution, though, is like, well, if we give in to Putin, yeah, fine. I don't have frame it however you want. If you give in to Putin, you give him the lands that he conquered. Fine. I don't care. Whatever stops the bombs, whatever stops the death. Like, I can't even. What is he even saying? What is Blumenthal even saying at this point? Well, Putin invaded and he's bombing. And so to end the war, Putin needs to back out. We give the lands back to Ukraine. Maybe. I don't see that happening. Turns out, I think to end the war, you need to give Russia the lands that it has. There it is. Which has, by the way, ethnic Russians in it. Ethnic Russians that voted to join Russia in the first place here. And so there you go. You stop the war by stopping the war, Blumenthal. Like, I don't even know what he's complaining about at this point.
And at the front, he's continuing to pummel the brave Ukrainian soldiers who were defending the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, the town of Probovsk. And this war is continuing. There's no ceasefire. There's no deal.
All right, so there's the other talking point. There's no ceasefire. And again, I'm going to go back to this question here. Where was any Democrat voice during Joe Biden's entire administration wishing for a successful closure to the war? I can go back and I can see all the votes to send more money, to send more munitions. I can see our congressmen and women wearing blue and yellow lapels, I'm pretty sure Blumenthal flew over to Kiev at one point to meet with Zelensky. He might have been part of that deal, or there were multiple flights over there from our elected representatives. For 3.5 years, when the war broke out to the time Joe Biden left office, or 3 years, 4 years, it doesn't even matter. For several years, Joe Biden's entire administration, because they had to stop COVID, so they started the Ukraine-Russia conflict, not a single Democrat, official or voter, expressed concern about ending the war. They expressed concern about supporting Ukraine in the war. That is a big distinction. Not ending the war, continuing the war so that we could defend democracy in Ukraine. The democracy, by the way, that was canceled, so Zelensky didn't have any more elections. He made it illegal. I think he banned all the churches over there, so good job with that. So much freedom going on that if you were a male of any age, you would be conscripted against your will and thrown to the front lines here. Democrats supported that. I am trying to wrap my head around how you, as a Democrat, on one hand, were like, I support Ukraine. Look at my bio. Look at my virtue signaling. I support Ukraine. I'll never sign up for the Foreign Legion. I won't send money over there. I won't adopt a Ukrainian refugee, some orphan child because his mom and dad got killed. I won't do any of that, but I will vote to send more of Todd's tax dollars overseas, and I'll vote to get more Ukrainians and Russians killed. And now today I'm waking up and I'm listening to Democrats complain about how the peace deal isn't moving fast enough or the way they want to see it. Get out of here with that. Get out.
And the reason is Putin doesn't want a deal. He doesn't want peace. And the only way to convince him to stop this diplomatic rope-a-dope, playing the president, delaying any kind of ceasefire, is through strength.
There it is, folks. The only way to come to peace is through strength. Now, peace through strength, when Donald Trump does it, is I will bomb you to the Stone Age if you don't get on board and then sign a peace deal. Peace through strength with Blumenthal and these pro-war, pro-murder mongrels is we will just murder, we will slaughter Russians until you capitulate. Do you see that that's a slight difference? Peace through strength, the Reagan-esque, the Trump-esque peace through strength is saying, I have a full hand over here, full deck of cards, and I will throw them all on the table, and I will nuke you. You better get on board with what we want. That is peace through strength, the threat, the idea of a full-force barrage. Peace through strength, when Blumenthal talks about it, is sending more munitions overseas. He just got done complaining about how people are dying, and he's like, do you know what is going to solve this problem? Killing magnitudes of more people so that Putin finally runs out of people to send to the meat grinder. That is evil. That is demonic. But this guy doesn't care. He does not view the Russian soldiers as human beings. Hell, he doesn't even view the Ukrainians as human beings. Because if Ukraine escalates its retaliation, its response, its defense, more Ukrainians will die too. The same people. He was like, and he struggled saying brave right away. Did you catch it? These brave Ukrainians. He will get more of them killed too. Peace through strength is not doing trench warfare over there in World War I, where you take turns running across the battlefield and just getting slaughtered. But we have not changed hands in 3 years. Territories have remained the same. Yes, there is bombing. It's awful. Those bombs are ours, by the way. The Blumenthal voted to send over there. These people are sick, evil, twisted, demonic, satanic. You as a Democrat voter out there, what is so hard to understand? I have been calling for peace the entire time. These guys are calling for peace since Saturday. And now when Donald Trump goes about resolving the conflict and bringing peace, bringing the world leaders to the stage together, they're like, he didn't do it right. Well, what did you do for 3 years? You voted to send more war, to create more war over there. This is so ludicrous to me. I can't. Tell me what audience, Denver voters, family members, and friends, when I see at my kid's birthday party, when I see at my birthday party, because the end of August is super busy in our family, let me know what I'm missing. I would love for someone to explain to me what I don't understand here. And from where I'm sitting, they wanted the war. They wanted to escalate the war. And now that Donald Trump is trying to end the war, this guy's solution is to escalate the war again. So he's complaining that Donald Trump's not going about peace the right way, and his solution is to go the opposite way of peace with more slaughter. It's fascinating. This is so fascinating. All right, folks, I'm fired up here. It's been an hour 20 here. That is much longer than I thought I'd go on today. I had a lot of thoughts about mail-in ballots, about voting in general, about this peace deal that Donald Trump's going to come to, and the insane, evil Democrat response to this. All right. TLDR, you were with me for an hour 20 here. Let me sum up. Voting is too easy. Voting should be nearly impossible. You should own land. You should have kids, net contributors to society. You can be over the age of 18. If you're military, you're exempt from some of those other protocols here. But we have to have a stake in the future. You have to have a proven track record to be able to vote. If you can't take care of yourself, or you're just not in a position to take care of yourself, then you don't get to make decisions that affect other people. That doesn't seem difficult. Same day, paper ballots, you're hand counting, your machine counting, you're verifying, you're tabulating the results. They need to match up perfectly here. You obviously show a voter ID when you go vote. And whoever qualifies, congratulations. You now have a voting privilege in the United States. And if you don't qualify, then try again next election cycle. I don't know what else to tell you. There are too many morons in this country, too many people that vote just for more theft from people like me that work hard every day. I'm over it. And as far as the Ukraine conflict goes, I voted for peace. If you're a Democrat, you voted for war. You voted for more death, more suffering, more carnage. And now you are getting told, I played the Swalwell and Blumenthal clips. You are getting told, after waving your stupid blue and yellow flag, which signified slaughtering human beings, you put it in your social media profile because you're such a good virtue signaling human being. You voted for Kamala Harris to continue this. You voted for people that voted to send money and munitions over to Ukraine. Now, in the last 3 days, you have been convinced that Donald Trump is going around about peace the wrong way when all you did was ever vote to escalate the conflict. And I played the Blumenthal clip here too. His solution to ending the war is introducing more needless suffering and death so that Putin is putting his tail between his legs. You people are absolutely insane. You are absolutely insane. This is evil stuff right here. You as a Democrat voter, I don't know how you put pants on when you wake up in the morning. Gosh, I did so good. I was so nice to Democrat voters this whole show, and now I just lost it. This Ukraine thing just blows me away. You guys support crime in D.C. You support government corruption when Doge is going through there. You support wide open borders. You support everything that is upside down and wrong. And then when you get exposed to this idea, you're like, well, you voted for the fascist pedophile. Like, that's all you have. That's all you have. All right, folks, I got to get out of here. This was a fun show here. I'm a little fired up on the way out. Thanks for tuning in. Wrong Thing, thanks for broadcasting us on your walk this morning. I hope everyone enjoyed the show as well. We're going to see you next Thursday, this upcoming Thursday. What is that going to be, the 21st? Maybe 8:30, maybe 9:30. I don't know. We just kind of go when we feel like it on this program. Have a great rest of your day. We'll catch you on Thursday.